Guys, so in this video, Helen Zille, right, she's really dealing with this issue of how to address the injustices of the past. This is something I've learned in South African history, South Africa's politics. A lot of the policies, especially those with BEE, actually have stemmed from this pursuit of repairing the wrongs of the past. And I think I heard it also once from Moletim Becky on how, or sorry, it was Dawi Root. Dawi Root argued that, the economy in South Africa seems to be growing at a rate of 0.6%. I think he was arguing that, a lot of people have argued that if the, AGOA privileges are taken away from South Africa, it would amount to, I think, probably maybe 6 or 7% of the contribution of the AGOA privileges to GDP and all that. And Dawi Root was arguing that, that would be a fair argument, but not when an economy is growing at a rate of 0.6%. And when you take away that 2% or thereabout, I don't remember the statistics clearly anyway, but he argues that, because of the fact that South Africa's economy is growing really slowly, any small effect that the AGOA privileges would have if it's taken away from South Africa, it would hit the economy harder than it would naturally because of the fact that South Africa's economy is not really growing really as fast as it should be. I think many arguments have actually occurred that during Mbeki's time, I think the economy was growing at about 6%, per year. And that, I think it was still Dawiru who argued that there were at least 500,000 jobs being added to the economy every year. But that has tanked since, in a long time now. And so Helen Zille is actually arguing that, and I like this question that this guy poses to her in this really interview. I think this interview is also one of those ones we should watch till the end. Helen Zille is arguing that to correct the wrongs of the past, right, the economy would need to grow. The economy would need to sort of like expand in a way. And I'm just really trying to really still put my head and wrap my head around that whole calculation. But she really spells it in details here that, at the end of the day, to empower those who have been historically disenfranchised according to, the events that took place in South Africa's past, the mere fact of probably having these BEE policies or probably giving them grants, taking from a few and giving to the other, might not be the best way. I really see that, many of you in my comments here have actually been speaking about how you've sent your children, or many white South Africans, many people who actually are able to start businesses in South Africa have refused to really, maybe not refused per se, but are reluctant to start businesses because at the end of the day, if the business grows to a certain point, they have to really start implementing these BEE-like policies, which at the end of the day doesn't really create an incentive to continuously run a business in South Africa. And so at the end of the day, what we see is that those who actually should be bearing the brunt of these BEE kind policies end up moving their investments somewhere or moving their businesses somewhere. The likes of Rob Hersov, for example, things that white South Africans do not really, he's really struggling to wonder why a white South African should remain in South Africa. I think I made a video about that today. He argues that, the incentive of being a white South African, probably owning a business in South Africa, running a business in South Africa, he really doesn't see that incentive. And I think it's as a result of this whole kind of like BE. So what Helen Zille is actually pushing here in this video, and I think we should all watch this now together so we get her thinking. She actually has been speaking about the kind of growth that has been happening in the Western Cape, and how somehow the Western Cape seems to be circumventing this low growth that's actually occurring in the larger part of South Africa, and how it is that it would almost be impossible to correct the injustices or the wrongs of the past by having an economy that is not growing. And one of the reasons why it's not growing, I would argue, and many actually like Dawi Root and many economists have argued, as a result of these BEE-like policies that seem, instead of strengthening or helping the majority of the poor people in South Africa, which might be the blacks, for example, and the colored, it's actually enriching a few black elites. And it's really, somehow for me, really shatters the whole efficacy of the policy in itself. Let's quickly listen to Mama Iron Lady Helen Zille break some of these issues down and share your thoughts, guys, in the comments.
I want to you were saying that voters would choose, based on delivery, as it were.
Well, more and more people are understanding that good government makes a difference in their lives.
Sure.
They know what it's like to live without water, without electricity, with potholed roads, with no safety, with electricity that goes down all the time. The rest of the country's recovered from load shedding. Joburg still has problems because of the local government reticulation network. No traffic lights. They understand what it means, and they understand what the flight of business and investment means. No jobs, huge burgeoning numbers of unemployed people, burgeoning crime. That is the result of bad government.
So then that leads me to think that you might imagine that in 2029 you'd pick up even more votes, and you imagine that the ANC is going to lose even more votes.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Because it's up to the voters of South Africa. All we can do as the DA is saying, we've got a policy, we've got a plan, we've got competent people. They're all chosen through merit selection. They're all chosen through merit selection. And we can get this done. We've got the best chance of getting this done. But it's up to you now. Do you want to fix your city or don't you want to fix your city? Because we can only give you a council candidate in every ward, and we will do that in every single ward. But if you want to carry on with more of the same, degradation, decline, economic collapse, it's over to the voters. This is a democracy.
And how then does the DA address, a very, very long period of historical injustice? How does that?
You will never address that without economic growth. That is the first requirement. If you've got a declining economy and people who have capital and skills leaving the country or all moving to the Western Cape, you're not going to have a rate space.
Lots of people moving back to Johannesburg.
No.
The figures show it.
Well, I look very carefully at the figures because I see
certainly from a property point of view, the property people will tell you that people are, moving
because
back
people
because they
afford
simply
property.
can't afford property in Cape Town.
And why
Because you
can't they
have-
afford property? Because there's so much demand. If they could, well, why do you think it is? It's supply and demand. Right?
I think that there's a case to be made for the fact that foreigners have bought our properties at such extreme prices that this has affected the entire housing market in the Western Cape. And that's why, people are buying, let's say, even at the kind of R1 million mark, are finding it difficult.
Yes. A lot of foreigners are bought on the Atlantic seaboard. That is true. That is true. But you know how much some of them pay us every month to live in their own houses? They pay 40,000 Rand in rates alone.
Sure.
Every month to live in their own house.
Sure.
That's not the bond, that's nothing. It's not their water and electricity.
This issue has come up across Europe, it's come up in New Zealand.
I know, but let me explain this to you. The amount they pay in rates enables the city of Cape Town to offer the most generous, free basic services package to poor people. So the point I'm making to you is this. If you don't have a rate space and if you don't have economic growth, you will never deal with the injustices of the past. And if you are going to pretend that you can destroy the economy and deal with the injustices of the past, you're only fooling yourself. And that's what the ANC is doing.